Well, it is the first day back for question period in the House of Commons. They've been on vacation for well over a month now. That's kind of the beautiful thing about being a politician is you work about half of the year, give or take maybe, but they're back. Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, they went toe to toe, and it was pretty insane. It got pretty nuclear, and you saw Chrystia Freeland. You saw a whole bunch of people, familiar faces in familiar spaces, and it just got pretty heated and insane. So before we get into it, I'll encourage everybody, smash that like button. Subscribe. I almost said surprise. Subscribe if you haven't yet already. Really helps grow the channel, as well as turn on post notifications so it adds a layer of insurance so you can actually be notified of upcoming videos. And if you would like to watch the question periods streamed live, I do that on my House of Canada channel. I don't know why my hand is doing this. It's linked down below in the description. Awesome people. We almost had 3,000 live concurrent viewers, and it's a great time. The chat's open and everyone has an awesome time. And just a reminder that if you'd like to get yourself a sticker bundle, you can do so. There are a bunch of awesome stickers down below in the description, or likely the pinned comment of this video. So sit back, relax, and watch the highlight reel of this question period, because it's a doozy. It's a doozy. Yeah, I forgot to mention, if you hear me humming at different points, I'm humming kids songs. It's just stuck in my head. It comes with the role of being a dad. Yeah, sorry about that. I have Miss Rachel to blame on YouTube. If you know who that is, then you know. If you don't know, that's all right. Maybe one day you'll know. All right, here we go.
Axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime. Let's bring it home.
The Honourable... Questions orales.
Oral questions. Questions orales. Honorable Leader of the Opposition. We say it my way, Fergus.
I will begin by wishing a welcome back to Canada to the Prime Minister after his great vacation costing $89,000 free that he got as a gift, just like any other Canadian who gets a vacation like that. And he's not talking about the 2 million Canadians who have to go to a food bank, or to the students in Montreal who have to use homeless shelters after his policies tripled rent in his home city. Will he overturn these inflationary policies that have made it difficult? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Starting off with a bang.
Mr. Speaker, 7 years ago, 6 Muslim Canadians were killed and 19 others seriously wounded during a terrorist attack at the Quebec City.
Yeah, we just had a moment of silence, buddy.
Because of their religious beliefs. We mourn the loss of these people who were murdered in cold blood, and we stand with those who have suffered from Islamophobia and hate.
We just had a moment of silence for it.
Over the course of the last months, Muslim Canadians have seen a concerning rise in hate speech and discrimination, and more than ever before, we need to stand together. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, 2 million Canadians have to go to a food bank. Students have to live in homeless shelters. In Quebec City, the cost of housing has doubled. In Montreal, it has tripled. Across Canada, the cost of housing has doubled since this Prime Minister promised to reduce the cost of housing. Will he finally overturn the policies that create bureaucracy and inflation to allow developers to ensure affordable housing for people who need it? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader is launching personal attacks to deviate the debate on housing.
Mr. Speaker, he's getting personal.
That people recognize the plan. Canadians know that it's not with slogans that housing will be built. He has tried in vain to delay the elimination of the GST on rental housing. He voted against the Housing Acceleration Fund, which allowed the construction, or will allow the construction of more than 500,000 housing units. There's a lot of progress being done, and we will continue to do that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Minister back from his $80,000 vacation, which he got for free. He said, like most Canadians, friends welcomed him for that vacation. He took 2, not 1, but 2 private jets paid for by the taxpayer, burning 100 tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. He wants to tax the heat and the food of Canadians, did he pay the full carbon tax on each of the 100 tons of emissions that he put into the atmosphere as part of his $80,000 vacation?
Wow.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Conservative leader has simply no plan to address climate change in this country, no plan to increase the resilience of our communities in the fight against climate change. A warming climate causes droughts. Droughts damage crops. Damaged crops increase the cost of groceries. And yet, the Conservative Party cannot even agree on whether or not climate change is real. Mr. Speaker, we will achieve our emissions reductions, all the while sending Canadians checks to help with the cost of rising prices. They're a real solution.
They're rising because of you, buddy.
Position.
Well, he says that greenhouse gas emissions are driving up grocery prices. He put 100 tons of those emissions in the atmosphere for his personal vacation. This is high tax, high flying, high carbon hypocrisy. Yep. Meanwhile, Canadians in Edmonton were facing minus 50-degree temperatures on which they were paying carbon taxes just to heat their homes and stay alive. Given that he gives himself a free vacation at other people's expense, will he at least allow Canadians to heat their homes without his tax?
Yeah.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Conservative leader likes to talk about the challenges Canadians are facing on the cost of living, but he refuses to take action in support of them. He chose to delay the passage of Bill C-59, which is also hurting his own caucus.
That's right.
Does the member for Battleford's Lloydminster now suddenly oppose maternity leave for adoptive parents? Surely the member for Cumberland Colchester won't back down on his advocacy to remove the GST on therapy and counseling services. While the Conservative leader is muzzling his own caucus and putting himself first, we'll keep putting Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I don't think that was as powerful as he thought it was.
This one is just too easy. He walked into it. He had to muzzle a member from Newfoundland who called for an end to his leadership, joining another senator who did the same, because they understand that their constituents are literally starving and unable to heat their homes because the Prime Minister is quadrupling the carbon tax, doubling housing costs, and giving the worst inflation in 40 years. Why won't he listen to, instead of intimidating, his member for Newfoundland and put his leadership up to a review for...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, over the course of the fall, we've announced projects on housing that are going to create 500,000 new homes across this country over the year. We're working hand in hand with community leaders, with mayors. We're making sure that we're moving forward on the priorities that are facing Canadians. In terms of standing up for his caucus, the leader across the way will not even mention the fact that the person sitting 3 seats to his left dined with a far-right conservative German politician and wants to abolish the United Nations. Is abolishing the...
He's still on that, eh?
...position of the Conservative Party of Canada.
Oh, poor guy.
Honourable.
Edmonton had to declare a housing and homeless emergency while the Conservatives are laughing about homeless people and a housing crisis. Toronto also had to declare one as well. Again, you'll hear the Conservatives laughing because they have no concern for people who are struggling with housing or homeless.
Jagmeet talks and the whole freaking room goes crazy.
And they don't get it. The Prime Minister doesn't get it. The Liberal Minister for Edmonton doesn't get it. And the 24 Liberal MPs in Toronto don't get it. Why does this government wait until before acting?
He's lost his damn mind.
Jusqu'à date, ça...
To date, things were going quite well, but I would ask the member for Edmonton West, the member for St. Margaret South Shore, please.
Oh, he's got glasses on now.
Don't speak unless the chair recognizes you.
The
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Use every tool at our disposal to address housing affordability, we meant it. The Minister of Housing recently announced that the post-secondary institutions can now access the apartment construction loan program for low-interest financing to build student housing. This builds on our work to find innovative and bold ideas to accelerate construction, including unlocking over 500,000 new homes through the Housing Accelerator agreements. More examples of the federal government in action.
Very good.
Jagmeet just looks so dumb.
Doesn't get it. Quelle surprise. Le premier...
What a surprise. The Prime Minister broke yet another promise.
Then
Rent eviction
call off the coalition, you
at a
turd.
high.
Holy
And yet
smokes.
He is refusing to tackle major investors like he promised. Why does the Prime Minister say one thing during the election campaign and then defend his friends' profits once elected?
Why do you say one thing in your videos
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
and then you do another?
Speaker, we are taking action on a number of fronts. So we're promoting the construction of housing and co-ops by eliminating the GST on construction. We're ensuring that more houses are built faster, working closely and directly with the municipalities. We're helping Canadians save to build a home with the tax-free savings account for the purchase of a first home. There's more work to be done. I invite all governments across the country to be bold with us to improve the cost of housing and the construction of affordable housing.
From Regina Capel.
The Prime Minister must still have sand in his ears from his Jamaican vacation. That must be why he can't hear the outcry from
The most
Canadians
Andrew Scheer thing to say.
carbon tax. While he was lining up at the all-inclusive, Canadians were lining up at food banks, and grocery prices jumped again, 38% higher than baseline inflation. Now, Common Sense Conservative Bill 234 will help bring prices down by taking the tax off of farm production. The only problem, Liberal senators gutted the bill.
Yep.
Will the government reject the Senate amendments so that the tax can come off and food prices can come down?
Yes.
There you go, big guy.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely
Sorry.
understands that the housing
Holy shit.
and cost of living are challenges for Canadians. That is why we are aggressively working across the country to build more.
I don't know what the fuck kind of reaction that was.
The Housing Accelerator Fund, with more than 30 agreements in place across the country, will lead to 500,000 new homes being built.
I'm sorry.
Speaker, is
Just seeing her face scared the shit out of me.
Conservatives cut. They know how to cut, they don't know how to build. And what Canada needs right now is builders.
Honourable member from Regina Capel.
We'll cut the waste and
sorry.
mismanagement that's driving up inflation in the first place, like the infrastructure bank, like high-priced consultants, and like sending money to the Asian infrastructure bank to build projects overseas instead of here at home.
Yeah.
But the question was about the carbon tax and why the Prime Minister is so pathologically obsessed with it. He doesn't care that Canadians are going to food banks, or that mothers are watering down milk, or that seniors are skipping meals. He even sent one of his ministers to go bully Liberal senators into gutting the bill. So once again, will they reject the Senate amendments so that the tax can come off farmers and food prices can come down?
Drop a W in the chat for Scheer.
Deputy Prime Minister.
He's up against a witch.
You know, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Let's talk about working families. Everyone knows those are crocodile tears. This is the party that has voted against early learning and child care, a revolutionary national program which is bringing down costs for hundreds of thousands of families across the country and allowing women to go to work. These Conservatives have voted against the Canada Child Benefit, a huge support for families across the country. And, Mr. Speaker, they're going to vote against dental care, too. Excellent.
Let's get up to 1,000 likes, folks. Let's get more people in here.
It's an opportunity to help families and help families struggling with high food costs. Bill C-234 is back in the House after Liberal-appointed senators delayed and gutted that bill. This is a common-sense Conservative bill that will give carbon tax carve-out to farmers and ensure that Canadians have access to affordable Canadian-grown food. But when the Prime Minister quadruples his carbon tax, farmers will pay $1 billion a year, driving up food costs even higher. So will the Liberals reject the Senate amendments, take the carbon tax off farmers, and lower food prices for Canadians?
Yeah.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Let me tell you what is common sense for working families across our country. It is common sense to have a national system of early learning and childcare with fees reduced by 50% across the country and down to $10 a day in 7 provinces and territories. It is common sense to support hardworking families with the Canada Child Benefit that has lifted millions of children and families out of poverty. And it is common sense to do what we're going to do this year, which is provide dental care to our seniors, having provided it
Dude, she just reminds me of a witch riding a broom.
There's this government's false perception of reality, and then there's the reality that everyday Canadians are experiencing. I would invite the member to consider what the reality actually is.
Yep.
She could only come down from her high horse and enter into the everyday life of Canadians. She might understand. Not everyone lives in downtown Toronto and has access to the luxuries that she does. Canadians are struggling. They are struggling to put food on their tables. They are struggling to pay their heating bills. They are struggling to be able to care for their families. Record numbers of Canadians are using food banks, and it has a lot to do with the carbon tax, which is scheduled to increase on April 1st. Will this government axe the tax?
The Honourable Deputy...
I'd drop a W in the chat for that. You know, Mr. Speaker.
It's the case that the vast majority of Canadians do not have access to the luxuries that the Leader of the Opposition enjoys. Government-provided housing, a chef, people caring for his home. So let's be fair. People who live in glass houses should be more careful about throwing stones. When it comes to the price on pollution, that returns more money to 8 out of every 10 Canadians. Families in Alberta will be getting more than $1,000 back. That helps them.
Hear, hear.
Every time the Prime Minister...
Oh, let's go, Melissa.
...vacation he didn't pay for, or Cabinet decides to have a meeting in a luxury hotel, more Canadians are without a home that's affordable, and even more are worried about losing it. After 8 years, they've doubled the cost of a home, the price of rent, and a down payment that you need to buy one. Interest payments on a mortgage are going up a staggering 30% this year. 8 years of Liberal NDP government's inflationary spending has made owning a home unattainable. So how can anyone trust the people that created the crisis to fix it?
The Honourable
Who's going to stand up?
Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition...
the guy who lost 1 million people.
The anxieties that people are experiencing that are very real when it comes to housing affordability in this country. However, when you actually look at the plan they're putting forward, it's clear they have no idea what they are talking about. Where we are reducing taxes for home builders, they want to put taxes back on. Where we are making investments to promote affordable housing, they plan on making cuts. In fact, they want to do away with the Housing Accelerator Fund, which has now created 30 agreements that's going to see 500,000...
He is wearing shoulder pads, isn't he?
We will build the homes. They will make the cuts. Canadians can make their choice.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Speaker, those are photo ops the minister is talking about. Home construction was actually down 7% last year. That's even worse than his nameless predecessor who was fired from the gig. You cannot live in a photo op. The videos won't bring warmth to the 300,000 people without homes. His tweets won't help the single mom who's trying to make her mortgage payment next month. And his press conferences will not help the thousands of young people trying to move out of their parents' basement. Why won't he stop subsidizing the bureaucracy who are blocking construction and focus on getting builders with shovels in the ground?
That's right. The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
What the Conservatives dismiss as photo ops are binding agreements with cities that have led to them to already change their rules to get more homes built. What they dismiss as press conferences included a new measure this morning that's going to extend low-cost loans to colleges and universities and builders to help those young people find a home and to free up supply in communities. And if they are concerned with housing stats as the appropriate metric, I would point out never once when the opposition leader was the housing minister did he get as many homes built as we did last year.
Hey! The Honourable Member from Kelowna Lake Country.
After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, Canada's housing crisis keeps getting worse. Canada saw over 17,000 less housing starts in 2023 than in 2022. And the average asking rent in British Columbia is now $2,500 a month. Working class people are living in their cars in parking lots. And their own housing agency even said that there is no plan to build the number of houses that Canadians need here in this country. This Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. When will the Prime Minister have a plan to build houses, not bureaucracy?
Let's go. We almost got 3,000 people watching live. Let's try and get, 1,200 or 1,500 likes.
Plan to build houses. In fact, we have a plan to build houses in real communities. Let's take the honourable member's constituency as an example. She represents the good people of Kelowna. Not only have we put programs in place that supported affordable housing in her community, we have invested $31.5 million to change the way that homes get built permanently in Kelowna. This is going to add up to 20,000 new homes to stock in the cities that she represents. And on both the plan to change the way the city builds homes and the specific project, she voted against the programs that fund them. I think we can rest our case, Mr. Speaker.
In just 2 years, this Liberal NDP Prime Minister has doubled the interest payments on his explosive debt. That's more tax dollars going to bankers, bondholders, and this Finance Minister's Bay Street buddies than on health care. After 8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost or his waste, like the $35 billion infrastructure bank that's built 0 projects, yet line the pockets of Liberal cronies. When will this Prime Minister cut the waste, cut the corruption, fix the budget to bring home lower prices, bring down inflation and interest rates?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we've already heard Conservative hypocrisy. Now we are hearing Conservative alarmism. So let's set the facts straight. The reality is Canada's public finances are sustainable, and that's not me talking. That is the credit ratings agencies, which have awarded Canada a AAA rating. It doesn't get better than that. But the real question Canadians need to ask themselves is, what would the Conservatives cut in their reckless and ideological pursuit of austerity? We've heard about them from healthcare. That's the first place they would go to make cuts.
The Honourable Member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
Well, first we're going to cut the amount of Liberal seats in this House and replace them with a common sense.
Oh, he said the thing!
Here is Finance Minister some free
Drop some W's in the chat, folks.
Why don't they cut woke policies like an axe the carbon tax to bring down the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating, and pass Bill C-234 for our farmers? Why don't they cut the $20 billion this Prime Minister gives to Liberal consultants to cover up the incompetency by his own cabinet? After 8 years, we all know this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. When will the Liberals fix the budget to bring down inflation and interest rates already?
Wow.
Prime Minister.
That was incredible.
I'll tell you one thing we know they would cut for sure, because that's what their votes during the marathon voting session showed. They would
tax
shamefully our support for Ukraine.
They would cut tax.
Ukraine.
Taxes. The Conservatives want to spend more donating to Ukraine than the Liberals do. They want to cut the tax here in Canada.
Why do they support Putin? Have they no shame?
They do not. The Conservatives are very vocal about their support for Ukraine. It pisses a lot of people off, but that's the fact.
After 8 years, senior public servants have spoken out about lies and abusive process in the Arrive scam scandal. We've now learned that shortly after their critical whistleblowing testimony, these senior public servants were put on leave without pay. They were told they were under investigation less than 3 weeks after their testimony, and they were suspended before the investigation had even concluded. This NDP Liberal government is punishing public servants for their Arrive Can testimony. What are these Liberals trying to hide with this retaliation and intimidation of witnesses?
Here, here. Why are you hiding? The Honourable Minister for Public Security.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, senior officials of the Canadian Border Services Agency that are responsible for ensuring that all the appropriate contracting practices are followed have appeared before the committee, and my
I guess they let anybody into Parliament these days, eh? If this guy's in there?
BSA was to the effect that we should share with the committee looking into this information obtained by the internal audit. Mr. Speaker, CBSA is doing its important work to ensure that everyone is responsible for following the rules. They've called in the police where necessary, they've done internal audits, and will continue to do all of this to ensure taxpayers' value.